It's an open secret that David Blatt's spot among the top Knicks coaching candidates is about who he knows. That's not meant to be a knock on Blatt's credentials, which are vast and impressive, but being the former college teammate of an NBA team president, especially when they went to Princeton, has its perks. Steve Mills already hired one of his former Princeton teammates to run player development in New York, Craig Robinson, and Blatt was given consideration by the Knicks 2 years ago when no other NBA team was calling. Pete Carril, 87, the legendary Princeton coach who guided that trio in the early 80s, believes his former players will make a decision for the sake of success, not because of a connection. Dave and Craig and Stevie were definitely close and I'm sure they're giving Blatt every consideration. But in the end, their judgment will be on how well he'll do, Carril told the Daily News. Stevie's on the spot and Craig is on the spot, but how can you hire your best friend if you're not sure if he can succeed or not? They have a tough decision to make. Blatt is scheduled to meet with the Knicks over the next week, making the trek from Europe, where he became just the second coach ever to win the Eurobasket, EuroLeague and Eurocup titles. Now AP, he would be Mills' choice, not Scott Perry's. According to a source close to the GM, Perry is not nearly as keen on Blatt. A possibility would be Blatt taking a position as an assistant or in the front office. But Blatt indicated he'll only leave Europe to be a head coach. The endgame has not changed. Blatt told the Jerusalem Post recently, "I want people to know that my decision last year was based on this exact scenario. That at the end of the season there would be NBA openings, that is now the case, and that I would try to see if I can get back into the league. If it happens, then I will be very happy, and if it doesn't happen then I'll return to the European option." Hanging over Blatt's candidacy is his 1.5 season stint with the Cavaliers that ended because, among other reasons, he had very little respect from LeBron James. Carril, who also spent several years as an assistant with the Sacramento Kings, acknowledged that Blatt might have issues connecting with NBA players. That would contradict one of the front office's stated priorities for a new coach, that he or she must understand the modern player. Stava, Susan, that definitely has to be a possibility, Carril said of Blatt not meshing with NBA players. In Europe those coaches have a lot more say in what the heck goes on. And I was told when I went to the pros that it's a players' league. And it didn't take me long to find that out. Blatt was hired in Cleveland in 2014 for a rebuild, but then the Cavs acquired LeBron and the entire direction flipped. Blatt went to the finals during his first year, but was also openly disregarded by James and disparaged by anonymous Cavs sources through the media. After starting 20-20 the following season, Blatt was canned. Carril said he refrained from contacting Blatt because, "I've been afraid to. I didn't want that to happen to him. I saw how he was struggling, I didn't like that. Dave has had a tremendous record in Europe and he actually did well in Cleveland. But when you're from Princeton, you have to prove yourself a lot." Carril said, "I think Bill Bradley faced that when he first got to the NBA in 1967. He came and started for the Knicks and it was tough for him to get started because there isn't a very high regard for Ivy League graduates going into the pros. And so you have to work hard on everything you do to prove you know what you're talking about. Dave had that problem in Cleveland, I'm sure." Carril is most famous for being the architect of the Princeton offense, designed to give his team a chance despite being outclassed in nearly every out-of-conference matchup. The idea was to kill the clock and wear down the defense with screening, passing and backdoor cuts. In 1981, Mills, a senior, Blatt, senior, and Robinson, sophomore, took the Tigers to an 18-11 record and a first-round defeat in the NCAA tournament to BYU, led by current Celtics GM Danny Ainge. Carril brought the offense successfully to the NBA with the Kings in the early 2000s, and Blatt has said his coaching style is influenced by what he played at Princeton. But Carril told the News the offense is obsolete for the game today. "If Dave asks me, I'll tell him to forget the Princeton offense." Carril added, "That's certainly a different approach than what Phil Jackson took with his beloved triangle." Howard Simmons, New York Daily News, he believed in that. "I believed in what I did too as it applied to what I did at Princeton at that time. But the game has changed significantly," Carril said. Blatt's interview will follow Jerry Stackhouse's, Mike Woodson's, Mark Jackson's and likely David Fizdale's. He wouldn't be the popular choice among fans, but he carries a resume of winning at each of his coaching stops, including under difficult circumstances in Cleveland. And Blatt also has that Princeton connection. He understands that he can't coach or play the way he did at Princeton. The shooting is quick, a lot of teams are playing without a center. The three-point shot has become especially important. It seems as though if you can't make threes, you're not going to win. So he has all that to overcome, Carril said. But I think what he has is the experience to show that he can coach in the pros. And that's up to Steve to decide. Because their decisions are important for their welfare. So once money becomes a factor in your life, then whatever friendships you have deteriorates somewhat. And so what you're doing is relying on the fact that he's going to succeed. Now they have a major rebuilding job there right now, the Knicks, but Dave knows the game and maybe that's what they need is a teacher more than a promoter. So it's a risky business, to say the